Most people turn on G-Sync and think that's it. But if you actually want the smoothest experience on a PC, you need three things working together. You need G-Sync, V-Sync, and a proper frame cap. In this video, I'll show you exactly how I set this up on my systems to get the best, smoothest gameplay possible. So before we start, the first thing you need to do is just check that your display rate is running at the correct refresh rate. So to do that, you just got to right click display settings, scroll down, go to advanced display, and then you can see the refresh rate currently selected here and the options. That's one way of checking it. If that looks all good and it is the display rate you think it is, then we'll go to control panel, Nvidia control panel. So you just go on here, right click control panel, and then we go to change resolution on the display on the left hand side here, and make sure you've got your right native resolution, and then you've got your refresh rate options here. You'll probably have a lot more than this. However, this is a 120Hz display, so that's correctly set. Perfect. Enabling G-Sync. Again, it's on control panel. You just got to go to setup G-Sync. Make sure that it's enabled for windowed and full screen mode, because in games you can select exclusive full screen, which will of course just use this full screen mode, or you can use Windows borderless as well. There used to be a performance impact when you didn't use exclusive full screen, but that's kind of changed now. It just makes it more convenient, if anything, to use borderless. So you can just press your start key and everything, get back into Windows and do all that sort of thing, rather than having to press Alt and Tab. So I'll definitely set that enable for Windows full screen mode. G-Sync synchronizes the monitor to the incoming FPS from the game, which fluctuates up and down constantly. So it talks to it a lot easier and better and gives you a smoother experience overall. However, there is a problem sometimes when the incoming refresh rate or the incoming frames exceeds your refresh rate, because you'll get tearing. So to counteract that, go to manage 3D settings, turn vertical sync on. So this acts as like a backup, which stops any sort of tearing at all if you've got a game running where you're running way higher than 120 potentially. But that's only two parts. The next part is RTSS. That's the next piece of the puzzle, the final piece, and that's called RivaTuner Statistics Server. That allows you to cap the frame rate globally. So here it is here. It's this little icon. I'll put all the links to the downloads in the description, by the way, for all this stuff. So this caps the frame rate at a global level. So what you want to do is make sure that you have the cap just below your refresh rate. So this is a 120Hz display. 115 is the best one. If you had like 160, I'd probably do like 154 or something like that. But again, just slightly below, because there's a threshold of where G-Sync works, or FreeSync for that matter. So yeah, for this system it's 115, and that stays there and it just stays minimized. Why all that works together is because G-Sync synchronizes the frames inside the refresh range, and then the frame cap from RTSS prevents the GPU from exceeding that range. And then on top of that, you've got V-Sync, and that catches any frames that do exceed that rate. So the result of that, completely extremely smooth frame pacing with minimal tearing on games. Of course, if your system isn't able to handle 115, if it can't maintain that, probably best to cap it at a rate that it can do at all times, and then you'll have a completely smooth experience, even if it goes to be like 80 frames or 90, something like that. Yeah, absolutely perfect. I wouldn't, if you see it just struggling all the time or going below those rates, it's never as good. You want to keep it stable and solid and consistent. When you've got all that at the global level like we have here, you don't want to be having that in games. So make sure that any game you're running, you don't have any frame rate limit enabled, or you don't want VSync on in the game either. So just have everything turned off and just let the sort of driver level do all the work. You just need one sort of governor doing the whole lot on your system. So with all this enabled, you've got the advantage of your GPU rendering less frames than that's needed. So that in turn reduces power output and consumption, and then you reduce your heat as well. So you just have an overall more healthier system. So that's the setup I use for the smoothest PC gaming experience that I've found so far. So you've got G-Sync enabled, V-Sync enabled in the driver, and then the frame cap slightly below the monitor refresh rate. You can further expand this, and I'll be looking at that in the next video and showing you guys how to undervolt the GPU and also look at undervolting the CPU as well, because I've got AMD 5950X. So yeah, we can have a look at that if you're interested. And I'd just like to thank you all for watching, and I'd really love it if you liked and subscribe if you've made it this far. Thanks a lot.